What do you think that schools teach is pointless? How to draw a turkey with your hand. I still put it on my resume, just in case. I'm a huge supporter of people learning history and through it learning about the kinds of people in the world, how things can go wrong, how to be better, etc. So much of my history classes was about dates, names of battles, pure bullshit. Yeah, the Native Americans taught the Pilgrims how to grow corn and then we'll just not talk about the next bit, or other really pointless shit. I had one teacher once who walked us through a period of early America who straight up talked about the good, the bad, the technology that was changing things, and why it mattered and how it added up to what happened. And it was amazing. History should teach you about humanity, what it does, how it works in large groups, things you need to watch out for, or even, I'd enjoy some of the wonders and amazing things that have happened, but they fuck it up, make it boring and nitpicky and demanding and annoying and usually, even if you really pay attention despite all that, useless. Physical education, but only because how it's taught. Actual phys ed teaching kids how to exercise in a way that works for them would be great, and get shower curtains FFS. Forcing teenagers to be naked in front of their classmates is a war crime. My country has a wealth of native literature that helps us appreciate our national identity in the post-colonial era. Our high school curriculum requires us to take up only 3 major Filipino works in total, 2 novels, but for some reason, we need to study 4 Shakespeare plays. To this day the social issues outlined in La Mitangere and El Filibusterismo are still quite present in our country, and the language the novels were written in is still spoken widely, albeit more modernized. Meanwhile, Merchant of Venice, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Hamlet in all their archaic 17th century English feel just as irrelevant to us now as during the years when we read them. At my school it was religion. I know I'm gonna get some hate for this, but all my previous teachers only taught us about Christianity and nothing else. My last religion teacher though was dope. She taught us about different religions around the world, not only Christianity, so that was pretty cool. I really wish my English classes were all about writing, technical writing, how to convey an idea, how to write a story, how to be concise and still get the point across. Looking back I kind of get that that's what they were supposed to be doing, but my English classes were all read this book no one in the room wants to read, figure out the symbolism that the teacher agrees with, write a 3-5-page essay that always follows the same format that you will never use again outside high school, 2 books and a Shakespeare play per year. 5 years of high school, literally the same course 5 times in a row. Poetry. I will never need to analyze a single word in a piece of text that has no deep meaning. Edit. I guess it's just my school and country that makes us overanalyze things. More to serve the right country, I guess. I think that every single thing you teach, if taught intentionally, with forethought and with good educational science behind it, is good, as long as you can engage the students. Anything that will increase engagement, curiosity, better social skills, scientific knowledge of whatever kind etc. is what matters, and make sure you get a good mix of all of those. If you get a student to be engaged in any sort of class that would fall under those parameters, it literally doesn't matter if you teach horse husbandry, obscure math concepts, esoteric social studies, exotic music. It just doesn't matter. Teach them to learn, teach them how to interact like fucking human beings, keep them curious. Everything else is bullshit until they turn 16 to 18, depending on your philosophy. A 3rd language. Our school teaches 3 languages. I'm fluent in my first language, English, and my second language, mother tongue, but I'm crap at the 3rd language. It really affects the overall average. chemistry. I can guarantee you I will never need to know how many moles of sodium bromide after oxidation is needed to balance out 16 grams of iron oxide before ionization. It's the most pointless thing to learn. It's about how they teach, and what aspect of what is learned, or supposed to be learned, is given the most importance. I'm still at school, but I want to be a teacher, and I will stress more on actually getting my students to like learning and being more creative, developing their abilities and skills, etc. Learning can be great, and in my opinion the current way of doing stuff should change quite a lot in order to fit best to this principle of really caring about having positive results from what you're doing. Positive results beyond A's. I mean to really have people who have learned and want to learn more, and have critical thinking and many other skills, etc. That being said, there's a strict curriculum we must follow. There's a very packed syllabus. I'll try my best in the future. The school system basically put people in boring 9-to-5 jobs. To make the world work, really the things we need are coding and people to do labor work. Then obviously the rich old people that have the companies. I don't see anyone becoming rich off Shakespeare, except Shakespeare. How to do your taxes or any kind of shit like that. 1. Kids will never remember any of that shit when it comes time to actually do their taxes years later. They'll just Google it or talk to someone. 2. The way taxes are done changes. What they taught me in school is useless now because everyone just uses TurboTax. 3. Just use TurboTax. Just about everything after algebra, and that's not to say that trig or calculus are pointless, but these concepts taught are not used in anywhere near as much complexity as it is taught to kids, if at all. There's a large lack of teaching just how to apply these concepts in situations people are actually going to have to deal with. For some of us, sports, yes, everyone should have physical activity every day, but some of us aren't competitive and are terrible at team sports. There should be more individualistic options, like running, walking, biking, hiking, etc. Just keep active for a whole class period. History at a surface level. In the Indian education system, we never go deep into a topic and just learn random facts and names which we can't connect and string together to form a coherent knowledge of the subject, thus defeating the point of the subject. I honestly believe that every subject taught at school can be useful. Maybe just not useful to you. The problem I have is with how much of what they teach is outdated or completely false. I was still being told that the tongue has different taste sections in high school biology. My stepbrother is still told that Pluto was a planet in his rural Idaho elementary school. Religion. Like, if you have questions about any religions, just Google it. And I think most people know the basics of the most popular religions. I'm sorry if you think otherwise. It's not meant to offend anybody. Gym or physical education. I am not against exercise in the least, but making a bunch of hormonal teens change in front of each other before and after a class where they are forced to do physical activities that they are most likely not good at nor do they enjoy sounds like a recipe for disaster. I hate it so much that it prevented me from taking an interest in my health or exercise as a teen. Young adult. I really regret them taking the joy out of something that I now find to be important in my life and important to my overall health, but forcing teens to do an activity will most likely make them not want to do that thing, rendering the whole program pointless. Some topics in biology. Okay, so things like vaccines, viruses, genetic disease, blood types, cancer, common diseases, anatomy, and basic botany, zoology is pretty useful. Now comes the useless. Details of ATP production throats. You know which meme I'm referring to, yell it out as a reply. Details of photosynthesis. You know, photosystems. glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, etc. DNA replication, like who cares? All you need to know is that DNA replicates before cell division and that there could be errors in the process that cause mutations. Who cares about helicase? Single-stranded binding proteins, uncommon biotech. Who cares about DNA microarrays and green fluorescent proteins? Just know how to read the gel in case you have to run into a paternity test. Mendelian and non-Mendelian genetics, so useless except blood types. I don't care about King Fucknut 1678, who had a dripping dick and then was killed by his inbred son, who married his sister and became King Fucknut the 28th, 1690, who lost some more than their country became whatever in 1707, and they spent like 2-3 months on this shit, but then it gets to World War I and II and they spend a week and a half on that topic. That's barely 100 years ago. Cursive handwriting. Absolute waste of time. Another thing that bugs me is making kids take elective classes that they aren't interested in after a certain point in school. Take me for instance. Music and art classes were a complete waste of time for me after 6th grade. You see, in elementary school those classes are basically pure enjoyment, and they come with a slew of benefits. Starting in grade 7, these are academic subjects, and you will be judged on your performance, and to a kid like me who isn't musically or artistically talented, this is a major bummer. I'd have been much better served being offered a choice. I would have chosen science, or shop classes, as those subjects interested me a great deal more. I don't think it's necessarily what they teach, but how they teach it, especially regarding history and English. History. Why are we learning about a political scandal or battle in 1832 that had little effects on the broader picture of relevance to our modern day? Why did we spend so much time learning political theory from the 1770s that we don't have time to even reach Richard Nixon by the end of the year? A lot of glaring inefficiencies in my opinion that rob students of a clear understanding of what has happened and why we are here today. English. Forcing students to read books from the early 1900s, rather than modern novels, again with relevancy, that flow with how we speak today. A student forced to read about Pilgrim or antebellum era America is going to have such a more difficult time enjoying reading. That's not even mentioning the gigantic issue of illiteracy and underliteracy in America. I'd argue that these old-timey stuffy country club type of books hurt those students with disability. Any math above algebra. People do not actually learn things if they don't have a way to apply them, and most people don't / won't ever use it, and this is coming from a programmer who uses lots of math every day. By the time you know if you'll need it or not, you're already specializing in a field and can make the choice then. Instead, students are just taught to remember, pass the test, then forget. Time wasted. Instead, more time should be spent teaching mathematical problem solving, which is absolutely universal and sorely absent from too many people. This would use algebra as a base, but it would also reinforce it, since students will be learning less new stuff every day. Lessons and homework could be 1 or 2 logic problems that require students to critically think and figure out how information relates to each other, instead of just following the 1, 2, 3 steps they are usually taught to memorize. I've done a decent amount of teaching in my own life, so I know it would obviously take a lot more thought and detailed planning to actually figure out a suitable path. But I do believe this would be the correct direction to go moving forwards. Also, chemistry. A basic understanding of chemistry is crucial for understanding basic things, but the way it's taught in high school, similar to math, is useless to the average student and would benefit from a similar plan as above. How to do your taxes or any kind of shit like that. 1. Kids will never remember any of that shit when it comes time to actually do their taxes years later. They'll just Google it or talk to someone. 2. The way taxes are done changes. What they taught me in school is useless now because everyone just uses TurboTax. 3. Just use TurboTax. Just about everything after algebra, and that's not to say that trig or calculus are pointless, but these concepts taught are not used in anywhere near as much complexity as it is taught to kids, if at all. There's a large lack of teaching just how to apply these concepts in situations people are actually going to have to deal with. For some of us, sports, yes, everyone should have physical activity every day, but some of us aren't competitive and are terrible at team sports. There should be more individualistic options, like running, walking, biking, hiking, etc. Just keep active for a whole class period. History at a surface level. In the Indian education system, we never go deep into a topic and just learn random facts and names which we can't connect and string together to form a coherent knowledge of the subject, this defeating the point of the subject. I honestly believe that every subject taught at school can be useful. Maybe just not useful to you. The problem I have is with how much of what they teach is outdated or completely false. I was still being told that the tongue has different taste sections in high school biology. My stepbrother is still told that Pluto was a planet in his rural Idaho elementary school. Religion. Like, if you have questions about any religions, just Google it. And I think most people know the basics of the most popular religions. I'm sorry if you think otherwise, it's not meant to offend anybody. Gym or physical education. I am not against exercise in the least, but making a bunch of hormonal teens change in front of each other before and after a class where they are forced to do physical activities that they are most likely not good at nor do they enjoy sounds like a recipe for disaster. I hate it so much that it prevented me from taking an interest in my health or exercise as a teen. Young adult. I really regret them taking the joy out of something that I now find to be important in my life and important to my overall health, but forcing teens to do an activity will most likely make them not want to do that thing, rendering the whole program pointless. Advanced math. Unless you're seriously considering being an investment banker, accountant, engineer, or another career that requires strong math prowess, you don't need to learn arithmetic, algebra, or trigonometry. You really only need to learn how to count and what numbers are. Algebra. Teach kids instead how taxation works, financial good practice and where money is best invested. I can say that I left school 20 years ago, have a degree and now work in a senior STEM role and have not once since age 15 needed to use algebra, pi or the like, whereas as an adult I'd have loved some knowledge on calculating mortgage rates, pension contributions and how to budget and plan for financial security. Everything. They teach outdated history, they teach algebra that is not even needed for this world for most jobs. Just send your children to private school. Honestly, that's what I would do. But then again, I don't have kids and I don't want kids. Everything. Teach us addition, multiplication, and subtraction. Then teach us how to do our taxes. We don't need to know how to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse of a right triangle when we're baking cakes and pastries for a living. The reason is falling debris and glass. It's highly unlikely you'll be killed by explosion or incinerated by the radiation outright. Chances are a nuke isn't going to fall on your school. The shockwave goes significantly further and can shatter glass and break apart buildings. Sheltering under your desk provides some cover from that. I don't think any of it is pointless, but it needs to be targeted better. If you have a kid that struggles with basic comprehension and spelling, cramming them with Chaucer and Shakespeare is ridiculous. Same with maths. If they are finding the basics challenging, adding algebra isn't productive. Some kids would be better served by concentration on getting the fundamentals solid, rather than adding subjects they cannot manage just to fulfill a government quota. Any history between 0 BC and 1600 AD, anything before 0 BC is way more interesting than King Edward the 69th, and anything after 1600 AD is important as to understand how far stuff like tech has come and how to learn from past mistakes. Anything between 0–1600 AD I find holds very little significance.